Welcome back to our Irish NFL show, Radio Row, coverage in association with Dunes and Drams. Discover Ireland beyond the game. We talked yesterday with Jeff Duncan from the Times-Picayune in New Orleans, and we just consecrated the Irish NFL show Hall of Fame. We got another Hall of Famer here in Sean Pendergast, who's been a great friend of the show from back in the early days when we couldn't have dreamed of bringing 7 of us to Radio Row and having a table and chairs and all the rest of it and banners. Look how far we've come in the world. Sean, from Sports Radio 610 in Houston, it's a great pleasure to have you back with us, and thanks for joining us. How have you been?
I'm doing great. I love that I'm a Hall of Famer because my daughter just got put in the Hall of Fame for her high school this past Friday in Chicago, and she was bragging a lot about being the only Hall of Famer in the family.
Hey.
So now I can call her up afterwards and say I'm part of the Irish NFL show Hall of Fame.
We don't have the gold jacket, but we can send you a hoodie. We'll get you an Irish NFL show hoodie.
I'll take whatever.
Gold hoodies. We need to get gold hoodies. Craig, make a note of that one.
Bragging rights with my daughter. That's good enough.
That's enough.
Yeah. It's great to be with you guys.
No, thanks so much for joining us. We were talking yesterday about how, in a sense, for the Seahawks, the Rams game kind of hangs over how you interpret the Super Bowl. And for me, from a Patriots perspective, I look at that Texans game, and if I have hope for the Patriots, it's that they were able somehow to find a way to do something against that Houston Texans D, which, maybe apart from the Seahawks, and maybe you have a slightly different view, is as serious as it gets in the NFL. I mean, they played out of their skins all season long.
Yeah, the story of that Patriots Texans game was obviously the performance of C.J. Stroud and the 4 interceptions. But you're right, offensively, it's funny. We were just talking about that on our show today. The Patriots didn't come away with that game with a great-looking box score offensively from a yardage standpoint. They forced 5 turnovers in that game, but the only one they scored on was the actual pick 6 that they scored. The Texans' defense, after the turnovers, seemed to take that as a challenge and shut the Patriots down. Aside from that, though, Drake May was able to engineer 3 touchdown drives. One of them was a short one because, it was, for whatever reason, they had a short field. But these two teams, both the Seahawks and the Patriots, are really the only 2 teams that experience any sort of success against this Texans defense. They're the only 2, if my memory serves me correctly. Jacksonville in Week 10 generated some offense as well. They had a special teams touchdown. But these are 2 teams that were able to actually generate 3 touchdowns against the Texans defense. And Drake May didn't have a great game statistically, but the touchdown passes that he had in that game, the first one where Kalen Bullock kind of overplayed it, hit Pop Douglas with a dime, took it to the house. The Stephon Diggs strong hands catch in the end zone. The big one was the Kayshon Boutte catch, again in the back of the end zone. So, yeah, this is going to be a really interesting game for Texan fans to watch for sure, because these were 2 teams that they had very traumatic experiences against this year.
You've been reflecting since that game, obviously, on the season that's been, and you mentioned, unfortunate game for C.J. Stroud at the end of it all. I mean, we find it, from our perspective, kind of slightly maddening watching that Texans team, thinking there's so much more in them. If CJ can play at the level that we know CJ can play at, I mean, that's the missing piece. Ironically, the foundational piece as of 2 years ago, and you're looking at it going, come on.
Yeah, that's a great point. If someone had told me after his rookie year, it's 2 years from now, that this is what the league would look like, because it was a very upside-down AFC this year, and this is what the Texans would look like, just in general, a 12-5 football team, I would not have guessed that it would be C.J. Stroud that would be the impediment right now to them getting to the promised land. But that's where we are. The frustration that you're talking about is something that Texan fans have felt since that day. The anger has kind of calmed down a little bit, but the concern is still there about what exactly is C.J. Stroud going to be. Now, the big story, and you're going to laugh, the big story, the A topic in Houston, and on our show yesterday at least, was the fact that C.J. Stroud cut his hair.
Yeah.
He cut his hair, and we're going through all these.
Looking for the reverse Samson effect
I put
now,
up a poll. Yeah. Oh, there was all kinds of biblical stuff for sure. I put up a poll on Twitter where I said, C.J. Stroud cut his hair. He's got a new look. How does this make you feel? Inspired with hope. It's a bad idea. Or the third one was, why the hell are we talking about this? Yeah. And that's the one that won the poll. But this is where we are right now. We're grasping for straws.
And I want to do a little kind of recap of the 25 season for the Texans. Obviously, the 0-3 start, competitive in all 3 games, could have gone either way, but battling with the Jags. I mean, I live in the Jacksonville area, and they were so worried about the Texans all season. Every time the Jags won, the Texans are falling right behind them. I want to talk a little bit about obviously we know about the defense. That doesn't need to be talked about, but I want to talk a little bit about the offense, and maybe is there a little bit of blame that needs to go Nick Caserio's way about how the roster was built up We saw the injuries that they had. Obviously, we knew Tank Dell was out, but Nico Collins having those injuries during the season, and were the Texans putting a little bit too much faith in Higgins and Knoll, the rookies from Iowa State? Woody Marks as well. Was it too much reliance on the rookies to save the season, despite all the kind of talent and the expectations they had in 25?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I would add one more thing to that, which is they made the trade for Christian Kirk and inherited that $16 million contract.
Yeah.
And outside of, if we're looking to kind of critique Nick, and Nick is a good friend of our show. We just did 30 minutes of radio with him yesterday, so we talked to Caserio quite a bit. We're the flagship for the Houston Texans. We carry their games. So that's definitely the side of the ball that's getting the heavy criticism for this team, as it should. Special teams and defense are really good for this team.
Yeah.
So the Christian Kirk, they traded a 7th-round pick because the Jags were getting ready to cut Christian Kirk.
Yep.
And so they said, no, we'll take his $16 million contract on, and here's a 7th-round pick. That move didn't really work out. Aside from the Steeler game, which he might have won that game for them. So if you value one playoff game as a $16 million entity, then maybe it was worth it. But they really wanted him to be a big part of that too.
Well, the thing, Kirk, a nice pickup, but he, with the injuries they had with Collins out, too much reliance on the rookies.
Yes,
you can't have Kirk as your wide receiver one.
Yeah,
he's a nice third option, but I feel like the expectation was on him to kind of lead that team in the offseason or the postseason. Yeah,
Higgins developed okay. Knoll was more of a return guy for them. I think where Nick gets a lot of the criticism, and I think probably some of it deserved, some of it over the top, is in the offensive line.
Yeah,
and a lot of people will look at the trade away of Laramie Tunsil for draft capital and say, "What did you do? Your line was bad, and you traded your best offensive lineman." This was a better offensive line this year than the one that had Laramie Tunsil last year.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think a lot of the moves that were made on the offensive line were moves that were made to reestablish the tone in that offensive line room. Yeah. I think Laramie Tunsil is a good player, but he's a paycheck player, and I think he was viewed as the leader in that room, and kind of this laissez-faire attitude kind of permeated that room. Not a room full of dogs, didn't like to run block. This group they had this year was not super talented, and I think they're going to draft a couple offensive linemen for sure. This felt like sort of a one-year patchwork fix-up that worked maybe a little better than they thought it would at times, but still not great. I think the big comparison that Texan fans were doing, and I think a lot of people who are focusing on offensive line play in the NFL, was look at what the Bears did for Caleb Williams. They went out and shelled out for Joe Thuney and Dahlman and Jonah Jackson, and that line ended up playing pretty well this year. Nick kind of went and did sort of like patchwork Home Depot stuff on the offensive line, and it was good at times, and it was bad at times, and it doesn't feel like really a line you can move totally forward
and
with.
It feels like, we talk about windows a lot in the league. I know I was really high in the Texans a couple of years ago when they had that trio at wide receiver, Dell, Diggs, and Nico Collins. And you almost felt like they were just ramping up, especially with the season Stroud had in his rookie year. You were looking at the Texans definitely making a charge. The AFC South was a weak division at the time. And they've been dominant the last couple of years in that division. But it almost feels like, not that the window was closed, but there was a great opportunity last year, notwithstanding the injuries for Caserio, or maybe to bolster that roster a little bit, because there were paper thin, I want to say, in some of the key areas.
Yeah, I think there was even a better opportunity this year than either of those first 2 years, just even with the offense the way it was playing, because no Joe Burrow, no Lamar Jackson, no Pat Mahomes. Josh Allen's playing on a 6 seed. The 1, 2, and 3 seeds combined had fewer wins at quarterback than C.J. Stroud did coming into this postseason. So I think there was an even bigger opportunity squandered this year, because I think this was a year where all the offense had to do was just not screw it up. To your point, it looks for sure going into 2024 like they were building an offense that was going to be a juggernaut. I remember watching the first preseason game last year in 2024, and it was against Pittsburgh. And the Texans go right down the field, march down the field. C.J. Stroud hits Tank Dell, who breaks 2 tackles, goes in for a touchdown. 4 plays, 60 yards, Tank Dell touchdown. I remember Field Yates of ESPN tweeting, this is going to be a problem for the league. And we all felt that way.
We all did,
And even about halfway through that 2024 season, or maybe 5-6 games into that 2024 season, the offense was playing really well. Then there was a period for about 3 weeks where C.J. Stroud got his head handed to him culminating in that Halloween game against the Jets, and he was just getting pressured like 60% of the time. He has not been the same since. He's had some ups, he's had some downs. He has not been the same since, and it's very frustrating because the question 3 years ago is Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud. Who's it going to be? And Texan fans were celebrating the fact that, oh my God, we got the number 2 pick, which we were all angry about that day, on a Hail Mary against the Colts.
I'll give you the Bears perspective on this as a Bears fan.
Yeah.
You know, we spent a couple of years going, oh my God, that was the pick.
Yeah,
why did they let Stroud go, and now we've ended up with Caleb Williams? Well,
and who knows? That could change. It's the whole thing changes, you know. But it's crazy that the Texans felt almost lucky that they got the number 2 pick after that first rookie year for both guys. Bryce Young looked like he didn't belong in the league.
No.
And now, I said this after the loss to the Patriots, I said, now it's like they're both back in the green room again. Yeah. We don't know which one's going to be better. Yeah. Like, Bryce has kind of raised his game up a little bit. CJ's come back down here. Yeah, this is bigger than a Texans thing. Like, if you're a fan of an NFL team, and there's a point where you feel like we've got that guy finally, and then you find out he's not that guy. Yeah. That is just it's a traumatic thing for
I'll
fans.
give you the template for that, and one of the ones that I found fascinating in recent years is the Rams, right, or the Eagles are another one. You make the decision quickly and you move on and you get the guy while you have built the team around the rookie contract, as the Rams did with Goff and swapping out for Stafford, and away you go.
Yeah. It's a wild league at that position, and it's getting wilder just because it's, you know, the development, you know, the development of the young. We could go to a whole other thing about development of young college quarterbacks and whatnot. But
I've been talking about that for a long time.
Yeah, it's a crazy league.
The AFC though, and it's interesting you bring this talking point up because we discussed it yesterday as to which team in the Super Bowl is actually under most pressure. In a weird way, I kind of think it's the Patriots because of all the variables that you mentioned that are not going to repeat themselves next year. You really expect the Chiefs to have another down year, the Ravens to have a down year, Burrow not to be in the playoffs, all those things to fall into place to open up the path for you. You know, you look at the Patriots not having to face Bo Nix in the championship game, the weather closing in at just the right points. That's a freak set of circumstances. No disrespect to the Patriots who handled their business and handled what was put in front of them, but I'm not necessarily sure if I'm a Patriots fan. I'm saying there's a sustainable path back there next year and in subsequent years.
It's funny. It's a really weird thing with the Patriots because in some ways they feel like, hey, we're 3 years ahead of where we're supposed to be. We're in the Super Bowl right now.
I remember the Bengals saying that a couple of years ago.
Yeah, totally. But the flip side is they also, all the things you just listed, plus they had a really easy, they're not going to have an easier schedule. Nobody's going to have an easier schedule next year than the Patriots had this year. So you're right. If it's one of those things like this might be the best look we have at it, they may be under the most pressure in this game. I think the Seahawks are going to win the game. I think, eventually Drake May is going to have to play a good game at some point. I don't think it comes against this defense.
Talk briefly about the AFC South. Yeah. Obviously, the Colts were up this year. The Jags much better than they usually are. It's been, as you know, the AFC South, it's been kind of the Texans division for a good chunk of the last, 5-10 years.
Yep.
Good to see a more competitive Colts. Makes it good for the division. Who as you're with the Texans, the bigger threat to the Texans going forward next year, Colts, Jaguars?
Oh, I think it's the Jaguars. And I'm not just saying that because the Colts finished 8-9 and the Jags finished 13-4. Obviously, the Colts were doing some great things before Daniel Jones got hurt. His play started to downgrade before the Achilles injury. Like they were playing at an unsustainable level. Yeah. But I think the Jags. I think Liam Cohen is a good coach. Yeah. He's, him being an offensive coach.
Can we please stop judging coaches, by the way, on the opening press conference? Like, remember this, everyone dumping on Liam Cohen this time last year.
Hope that everybody does, and then you just fade all those people and bet in favor of those guys because Dan Campbell. If you want to underestimate, he's been really good. Nick Sirianni's been really good. Yeah. I'm just listing the opening press conferences. Yeah. And Liam Cohen, who the rest of that press conference was really good, other than Duval.
Yeah. He wants that back so bad.
I know. He really does. He does not like getting needled about that.
No.
To answer I think it's the Jags. And my biggest fear, I said this going into the season, this is before they hired Liam Cohen. This is when they fired Doug Peterson. Say my biggest fear in the AFC South is the Jags finding somebody that unlocks that Trevor Lawrence that existed for
Right.
like 8 weeks in 2022, and I think they found that guy.
And they hit pay dirt with Campanelli in the defense and with Ladinsky. I mean, those two.
They hired well, man. Hiring
really
is a
did.
big deal.
Oh, it so is. I mean, because I've been watching the Jags.
I watched them in London play the Bears the season before, the disastrous season, and you're looking at the roster and going, "There's a lot of talent there. Like somebody's going to take this team and do something."
When you're
with
picking that high all the time,
Yeah,
you know,
you
you should have good guys. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Lawrence, I mean, everyone was on the fence about him, and was he a bust? And with coaching, he was able to progress in the latter half of the season. But again, they have the weapons on defense with Walker and with
Hines Allen.
Hines Allen,
and they've got a
Devin
decent,
Lloyd.
Yeah, they had a great run defense, but it just shows you the coaching. Cohen kind of, I don't want to say he fell on or he landed on third base, but that coaching duo on offense and defense was a huge part of the season they had. And the fact that they were getting interviews for head coach offers with other teams speaks to the quality of
Let's
the
give a shout out to Baker Mayfield here. It's clearly the Baker Mayfield finishing school. Canales, Cohen.
Yeah, that's right. Baker Mayfield's a kingmaker, man. Yeah.
He sure is. Anything else?
No, I think that's us. Sean Pendergast, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh,
Great to have you back with us.
Quick Astros prediction. I know they had a nice season. They had a nice season last year, 87-75. Second in the West.
Yeah.
Where do you see them in 26?
I see them. I'm not as bullish as most Astro fans want it. The orange and blue colored glasses are with a lot of Astro fans. I think there's a lot of questions in the pitching staff. I was looking at a forecast of what their opening day roster was going to look like, and like they had Lance McCullers listed as the fifth starter, and I'm like, he's healthy for like 30 innings a year. Yeah. So I think they've got an extreme question marks in the outfield, and then they've got 5 like real high quality infielders with only 4 spots to play. Right. So it's a weirdly structured roster.
It's kind of top heavy.
I'm giving you a really long answer for an Irish audience about the Astros. I think they missed the playoffs.
There's baseball fans out there. They need Bagwell. They need Jeff Bagwell back out there.
Jeff Bagwell, Connecticut guy.
There you go. That's it.
Man.
Sports Radio 610 in Houston is where you'll get all your Texans, Rockets, and Astros conversation. We've got some free Astros in there on top of our Radio Row coverage. Stay with us on the Irish NFL Show.